So today for my strategy that I would use with my English language learners, the strategy would be to apply visual support. And in specific, it will be during instruction. So we provide visual and language supports to just students in general, with anchor charts and with word walls, stuff like that. But sometimes the amount can be overwhelming for an ELL learner. They don't know which one to refer back to, and they don't know. A lot of times, they have a hard time reading from so far away. We are creating the anchor chart. They're usually said in English, and so the student might have a harder time keeping up with what is being said. So then the connection isn't made like a native English speaker. So my placement is in Spanish, and so I think this would be something great to do with my native English learners who have a harder time speaking Spanish. But in the context of, let's say, a ESL teacher, this could be done to help their English language learners. So I created an anchor chart and I left space on the sides. And so, but to begin, I had, the title, and I tried to make it look like an anchor chart that we would create in class. And so the goal would be that this would be the student's anchor chart. And so they can, as proficiency goes up, then maybe they could start to write in words, or if they're, depending on the student, if you think that it'll help them draw the picture on their own, then that would be another way to do this. But for the student to have it there, and as you're teaching, you can refer to the student to refer to the anchor chart. Because if it's just there, then they'll be looking at you. They won't be looking at their anchor chart, and so by the time they go to look at it, they probably won't know how to refer to it. So how I would do it is, let's say you're starting to write the anchor chart. You write the word theme on there in all pretty letters. And so, today we give the objective. Today we are going to learn about the vocabulary of theme and be able to identify theme in our stories. And so, before we can identify the themes in our story, we have to know what theme is. And so we're going to make an anchor chart to be able to understand what theme is. You start writing the word theme to make the anchor chart. And as you're writing it down, you can refer to the ELL learner and say, oh, look at, so if you have one of these papers, look at your paper and look where it says theme. And you can refer, it's on the top of the page or however you want to do it. And the student is able to see theme. I was like, well, what does it say underneath? And they'll read, it says tema. And so tema is the Spanish word for theme. What do you know about theme? You can have them talk to a shoulder partner, stuff like that. And so even though the student has a harder time understanding it in English, they're still able to be part of the conversation and part of the learning through the anchor chart. And the reason that I left spaces on the side is you can teach them to write down any questions they might not understand, or if you make this before the lesson, and a lot of times the lesson goes a different way. So for example, here I have my examples of theme to be courage and cooperation and compassion and friendship. But what if a student gives an example of honesty as a possible theme? Then, oh, you know what, that's a really good theme. You can tell them, like, hey, if you have your paper, write honesty on there. You can write it, have the student write it as well. That way they don't miss out on that on that part of the learning that's being done in the classroom. And then even afterwards, once you go into stations or independent group, you can say, hey, let's look at your anchor chart. I remember how we wrote the word honesty. Let's go see what that word is in Spanish, so you can understand what it is. And so you can write honestidad, and maybe you can say, let's write something that can help you remember what honestidad means if you don't know what it means, stuff like that. And so, for example, in my placement, like I said, this could help my Spanish learners, my English learners who have a difficult time in Spanish, but this could be something that our Spanish or ELL learners take on into their Spanish class, to their English class. And so something that I have noticed with my placement is that a lot of the ELL learners, they get a lot of their learning from the Spanish placement, and in the English placements, they don't feel responsible for their learning because they have the excuse of, I don't understand what they're saying. But with this, they have something to where it's like, okay, well, you don't remember what it is? Well, let's look to see what it says in your anchor chart. It says, what is the theme? You can read it in English. Theme is the message the author wants to give the reader. What does it say in Spanish? ¿Qué es lo que dice en español? In español, if you don't understand English, and then the student can read it. Well, that's how it is in Spanish. Let's look at the book. What is the book talking about? And so this really allows the students to continue in the conversation, in the learning conversation, as from what I have noticed, especially in lessons that we have done during Bulldog, which is like kind of like a study session, which is done in English. I've noticed that a lot of my ELL students, they don't feel like they are responsible for that content because they don't understand it. But giving them the support like this then keeps them in the conversation, and it makes them feel more part of the learning. They don't feel like they're just observers. They're actually part of the learning. You ask them while the lesson is going on with everyone else. You're asking them, hey, what does it say on the anchor chart? What does it say on your page? And so the student is actually able to interact and be part of the learning experience. So that was my strategy. I really like the strategy of and the biggest part is it includes the student, and the part of the learning that is so rich is whenever they're discussing the part of the new content and the new vocabulary. So yeah.